Frank was a veteran in the transportation business, facing long and challenging journeys on the roads of Mexico. Each trip was a mix of responsibility and danger, especially when crossing remote and perilous areas. On that particular night, the conditions were especially adverse, with torrential rain making the winding road even more treacherous. Even with his vast experience, Frank felt the tension rising as the hours passed. Visibility was minimal, with the headlights reflecting off puddles and obscuring the sharp curves ahead. The feeling of fatigue began to weigh on him, but there was still a long stretch to go before the next suitable rest stop. Finally, Frank decided he couldn't keep driving without a break. The safety of his cargo and his own life were at stake. He spotted a suitable place to park his truck among some bushes near a hill. Turning off the engine and stepping out with an umbrella and a flashlight, he decided to take the opportunity to relieve himself and stretch his legs before trying to catch a quick nap in the cab. As he walked away from the truck, the raindrops beating against the umbrella created a monotonous melody that echoed in the darkness of the night. But his brief pause was interrupted by a disturbing discovery: mud marks on the passenger side step of the truck. His heart began to beat faster as he realized that someone could have invaded his cabin. Cautiously, Frank approached the passenger door and illuminated the interior with his flashlight. The scene that unfolded before him made his stomach churn with fear and bewilderment. The light was on inside the cabin, even though he knew he had turned it off before leaving. Both doors were closed, but the curtains were slightly drawn, revealing only a small part of what was inside. With a mixture of apprehension and courage, Frank slowly opened the passenger door, prepared to confront any intruder who might be hiding there. "Is anyone there?" he called out, his voice echoing in the darkness. But there was no response other than the sound of rain beating against the metal of the truck. Determined to confront the unknown, Frank decided to open the curtains of the cabin to reveal whatever was inside. He was scarcely prepared for what he would find. As the curtains opened fully, he was greeted by the sound of a man screaming desperately for help. Frank's heart raced as he tried to make sense of what was happening. His eyes frantically scanned the interior of the cabin until they settled on a corner where an old dirty baby carrier was perched. The sight of this out-of-place object only heightened Frank's confusion. How did this object get here? Who or what was inside it? With trembling hands, Frank grabbed the baby carrier and threw it out of the truck, as if trying to rid himself of an evil presence. He slammed the cabin door shut and started the truck's engine, the desire to escape from that dark and menacing place consuming him completely. As he walked away from the scene, the rain continued to fall relentlessly, but now Frank hardly noticed. His mind was flooded with tumultuous thoughts as he tried to process what had just happened. But the strange night still held more mysteries for him. As he emerged from the bushes, Frank's truck collided with something solid. He stopped abruptly and got out to investigate, only to discover 3 large concrete crosses, 2 of them shattered by the impact of his vehicle. A wave of horror chilled his spine as he approached to examine what he had found. Among the wreckage, he found a small tombstone with the inscription "Carlos Peña y Familia," with a photo of a young couple and a baby. He quickly got back into his truck and resumed the road. As Frank drove along the road, a sense of unease accompanied him. The disturbing encounter in the truck cabin weighed on his mind like a constant shadow as he tried to process what had happened. The rain continued to fall, washing the landscape in shades of grey and creating a somber, melancholic atmosphere. As he drove, Frank's thoughts repeatedly returned to the image of the Peña family, whose lives were tragically cut short in an accident that he now knew was fatal. He wondered about their stories, their dreams, and aspirations that were abruptly ended on that dark road. But the mystery of that dark night was far from over. As Frank continued his solitary journey along the deserted road, he began to notice something strange happening around him. Shadows seemed to watch him, moving inexplicably through the rain-blurred landscape. For a moment, he thought he had seen indistinct figures standing at the roadside, staring at him with empty eyes and pale faces. But when he looked closer, there was nothing but the impenetrable darkness of the night. The feeling of being watched sent shivers down his spine, and he accelerated the truck with a growing sense of urgency. As the night progressed, the rain began to taper off, but the atmosphere of tension and mystery only seemed to increase. Frank knew he wasn't alone on that deserted road. There was something else out there, something beyond human comprehension, lurking in the shadows and whispering ancient secrets in the night breezes. Frank's truck pressed on with determination, its headlights cutting through the darkness as he struggled to leave the ghosts of the past behind. But no matter how fast he drove or how far he went, he couldn't escape the feeling that something sinister was following him, patiently waiting in the shadows for its moment of revelation. And so the night advanced relentlessly, each mile traveled bringing Frank closer to an unknown and mysterious destination. As the road stretched out before him, he wondered what else might be lurking in the shadows of the night, and if he would ever find answers to the riddles that haunted him since that fateful night. The road, silent and dark, guarded its secrets zealously, as Frank continued his solitary journey in search of redemption and understanding. And even as the sun finally rose on the distant horizon, he knew that the memories of that night would haunt his mind forever, reminding him of the deep and dark truths that lie hidden in the shadows of the human soul and on the roads forgotten by time. My name is Robson, and I want to share with you an experience that happened to my uncle, who worked as a motorhome driver. Once at a barbecue at a relative's house, I asked him if he had ever had a supernatural encounter, and his answer was surprising. He told me that when he first started working as a driver, he didn't like traveling alone, so he always invited one of his cousins to keep him company on the trips. On one of these trips, he recounted that on a dark and silent night, typical of the deserted roads that cut through the countryside, he was navigating the winding curves of the road while his cousin rested in the passenger seat, immersed in a deep sleep. The truck pierced the darkness with its headlights, casting beams of light over the deserted road. It was then that something strange caught James's attention. By the roadside, a small and enigmatic figure stood out against the dark background of the night. It was a creature that seemed not to belong to this world, sitting motionless with its hands covering its face. James's heart raced as he pulled over to the side of the road to investigate the mysterious figure. Its eyes glowed with a strange light, and a disturbing smile formed on its lips as it turned to face him. A shiver ran down James's spine, but even so he felt a strange determination to investigate. Waking his cousin with an anxious whisper, the two men decided to get out of the truck and approach the mysterious creature. Each step felt heavy, laden with the anticipation of the unknown. But when they finally reached the spot where the creature had been, there was nothing but the empty road, as if the figure had vanished into thin air. The experience left James perplexed and disturbed. He began to question his own sanity, trying to find a logical explanation for what he had witnessed. But deep in his mind, a seed of doubt was planted, making him question the nature of the reality he thought he knew so well. Years had passed since that fateful night, but the memories of the enigmatic creature never completely faded. And then, on another dark and lonely night on the road, James was confronted with the unknown once again. This time, the agony came in the form of a simple lack of gasoline. As he and a co-worker traveled together in their separate trucks, they realized they were running out of fuel in a remote area, far from any gas station. With nervousness growing in their hearts, the two men decided to share the little fuel they had, hoping to reach the next gas station. While his co-worker went out to fetch more fuel, James felt a change in the air. An intense chill enveloped the environment, even without a breeze to justify it. An indescribable presence hovered around them, filling the darkness of the night with a sinister aura. Instinctively, James began to recite prayers, seeking protection from the unknown that surrounded them. His words echoed in the darkness, a mixture of fear and determination. He apologized for disturbing the peace of the place and promised not to interfere further, pleading for safety and protection from whatever was out there. And then, as if in response to his prayers, the dark atmosphere slowly dissipated, returning calm to the night. His co-worker returned with the necessary fuel, and the two men departed, leaving behind the darkness and fear that had enveloped them. These experiences left James with more questions than answers. He knew he could never fully explain what he had seen and felt on those deserted roads at night. But one thing was certain: he had been confronted with something beyond his understanding, something that would forever remind him of the fragility of the world he thought he knew so well. As the years went by, his Uncle James continued his journey along the country's roads, keeping his eyes open for any other encounters with the unknown. Because in the end, he knew that the world was much vaster and more mysterious than any of us could ever imagine.